American farmers are facing their worst crisis in decades. They're losing money, customers, and hope. While families struggle to put food on the table, our nation's farmers are watching their crops rot in the fields. Canada, our quiet neighbor to the north, is taking over business deals that once belonged to American farms. The situation has become so desperate that some farmers are burning their own crops instead of selling them at a loss. This isn't just about agriculture, it's about America's ability to feed itself. When farmers can't make a living, everyone pays the price through higher food costs and fewer choices at the grocery store. If you care about what's happening to America's farmers and want to stay informed about this crisis, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring you the stories that mainstream media won't tell you. Every subscription makes a difference in getting this important information out to more people. What's happening state by state? Kansas, fields on fire. In Kansas, something shocking happened in June. Farmers gathered together and deliberately set fire to hundreds of acres of wheat fields. These weren't accidents or natural disasters, these were farmers who had reached their breaking point. Tom Peterson, a 62-year-old farmer, has been growing wheat for over 40 years. This year, he made the heartbreaking decision to burn his entire harvest. "I don't need anyone's pity," he said with tears in his eyes. "I need someone to buy my wheat." The problem started when three major buyers, Egypt, Algeria, and the United Arab Emirates, suddenly cancelled their contracts with Kansas farmers. These countries had been buying American wheat for years, but they switched to Canadian wheat instead. The farmers got no warning, no explanation, just cancelled orders. Now Kansas farmers face impossible choices. They can harvest their wheat and lose even more money on storage and transportation costs, or they can burn it and collect insurance money. Many chose to burn their fields rather than go bankrupt. The smoke from these fires represents more than just burning crops, it's the destruction of the American dream for farming families who have worked the land for generations. Washington, the Great Cherry Disaster. Washington state grows some of the world's best cherries. Every summer, the Walla Walla region buzzes with activity as workers pick millions of pounds of fruit. But this year, something terrible happened. The workers disappeared overnight. It started with rumors that immigration officials might patrol the farms. Even though no one was actually arrested, the fear was enough. Entire crews of experienced cherry pickers packed up and left. Without workers, 40% of the cherry crop rotted on the trees. Sarah Martinez, who runs a family cherry farm, watched helplessly as her fruit fell to the ground. "I don't need border fences," she said. "I need hands to pick my cherries." The timing couldn't have been worse. Cherries must be picked at exactly the right moment. Too early and they're sour. Too late and they're ruined. With no workers, millions of dollars worth of perfect cherries went to waste. Meanwhile, Canada was busy signing contracts with China, South Korea, and Japan. Canadian cherry farmers in British Columbia had workers ready, modern packaging facilities, and refrigerated trucks standing by. They smoothly took over $300 million worth of business that once belonged to Washington state. California, the vegetable catastrophe. California has always been called America's green heart because it grows so many vegetables. But now, even in the middle of harvest season, vegetables are rotting in the fields. Near Salinas, the lettuce capital of the world, farmers set up protest camps outside government offices. Their signs read, "Where's the American salad?" It sounds funny, but it's not. These farmers are watching their life's work go to waste. The problem isn't growing the vegetables. California farmers are experts at that. The problem is that no one is buying them. Export contracts have been cancelled, and processing plants are shutting down shifts. At the same time, grocery stores are selling Canadian lettuce for $6 a head. In poor neighborhoods, fresh vegetables have become a luxury item. Maria Rodriguez, an elderly woman living on Social Security, had to choose between buying vegetables and her heart medicine. "I never thought that in California I'd have to make that choice," she said. Canada saw this opportunity and prepared for it. They built state-of-the-art cold storage facilities and temperature-controlled transportation systems. They can deliver fresh vegetables anywhere in the world without losing quality. California lost $900 million in vegetable sales in just 3 months. Iowa, mountains of unwanted corn. Iowa farmers achieved something remarkable this year. They grew record amounts of corn and soybeans. Fields that had never been more productive stretched as far as the eye could see. But instead of celebrating, farmers are worried sick. Jim Thompson has been farming in Iowa his whole life. His grandfather started the farm. His father expanded it, and Jim has spent 30 years perfecting it. This year's harvest was the best he'd ever seen, too. 6 billion bushels of corn and 100 million bushels of soybeans. But the record harvest brought no joy. The storage buildings are overflowing with grain that nobody wants to buy. Countries that used to import soybeans from Iowa, places like the Philippines, South Korea, and other Asian nations, have signed long-term contracts with Manitoba, Canada. They don't say our corn is bad, Jim explains. They just need someone reliable, and we can't promise that anymore. The ethanol plants that used to buy corn are shutting down. Trucks that used to line up to haul grain sit empty. The whole system that once made Iowa the corn capital of America has ground to a halt. Texas, ghost ranches. Texas has always been cattle country. The state's massive ranches once raised nearly 1/4 of America's beef cattle. Every week, millions of pounds of Texas beef were shipped to Japan, Korea, Singapore, and Mexico. But now, many of those ranches stand empty. For sale signs lean against fence posts under the scorching sun. The grass has turned brown, and the cattle are gone. The problem isn't the quality of American beef, it's still some of the best in the world. The problem is that other countries now want to know exactly where their beef comes from. They want to know what the cattle ate, how they were raised, and whether they received growth hormones. Canada figured this out years ago. Every cow in Alberta and Manitoba gets a QR code when it's born. When someone in Tokyo buys a Canadian steak, they can scan the code and see the cow's entire life story, what farm it came from, what it ate, even pictures of where it lived. American ranchers tried to keep up, but the system was too complicated. Different states had different rules, and the paperwork was overwhelming, so buyers went to Canada, where everything was simple and clear. Why this crisis is happening? The worker shortage. The biggest problem facing American farms is the lack of workers. Farming isn't like office work, it requires people who are willing to work long hours in all kinds of weather. For decades, immigrant workers filled these jobs, moving from farm to farm following the harvest seasons. But stricter immigration enforcement changed everything. Even legal workers became afraid to work on farms. Just the rumor of an immigration raid was enough to empty entire farms of workers. Canada took the opposite approach. They created special visa programs for farm workers and built housing for them. They even started training programs to teach workers the skills they need. While American farms struggled to find workers, Canadian farms had all the help they needed. Rising costs and falling support. American farmers are being squeezed from both sides. Their costs are going up while their support is going down. In the past 2 years, fertilizer prices have increased by 300%. Fuel costs have skyrocketed. Equipment repairs cost more than ever. At the same time, government support for farmers has been cut. Programs that helped farmers compete in world markets have been reduced or eliminated. Many farmers feel abandoned by the very government they help feed. Canada made different choices. They invested billions in rural infrastructure, better roads, improved ports, and modern storage facilities. They gave their farmers the tools they needed to compete in world markets. The trust problem. Perhaps the biggest issue is trust. In today's world, customers want to know exactly where their food comes from. They want proof that it's safe, clean, and produced responsibly. Canada built systems to provide this proof. They can track every shipment from the farm to the customer's table. They invested in quality control and safety certifications. America struggled with this because of complicated rules between federal and state governments. While Canada was building trust with customers, America was caught up in bureaucracy and politics. What this means for everyone. Higher food prices. When American farms fail, everyone pays more for food, with less competition and more imports. Grocery bills keep rising. Families are spending larger portions of their income on basic necessities. Job losses. Farm failures create a ripple effect through rural communities. When farms close, so do the businesses that serve them: equipment dealers, feed stores, restaurants, and banks. Entire towns can become ghost towns when farming disappears. Food security risks. Most importantly, America is losing its ability to feed itself. When we depend on other countries for food, we become vulnerable to supply chain disruptions, natural disasters, and political conflicts. The hidden cost of the crisis. Small towns are disappearing. When farms fail, entire communities collapse. Take the town of Plainview, Kansas, population 1,200. 3 years ago, it had a thriving main street with a farm equipment dealer, 2 restaurants, a bank, and a grocery store. Today, half the businesses have closed. and the for sale signs outnumber the open signs. Mary Johnson, who ran the local diner for 25 years, had to close her doors last month when the farmers stopped coming in for their morning coffee. "I knew it was over," she said. "They were my regulars, my friends. Now they're gone, and so is my business." This story is repeating across rural America. When farmers can't make money, they stop buying equipment, fuel, and supplies. Local businesses lose customers and close. Young people leave for the cities, and towns that once buzzed with activity become ghost towns. The generational heartbreak. Perhaps the most heartbreaking part of this crisis is watching farming families give up traditions that go back generations. The Peterson family in Nebraska has been farming the same land since 1892. Great-grandfather Peterson came from Sweden with nothing but a dream and a strong back. His son expanded the farm, his grandson modernized it, and now his great-grandson Tom is the one who has to sell it. "I'm the first Peterson in 130 years who couldn't make this farm work," Tom says, his voice breaking. "I feel like I'm letting down everyone who came before me." Stories like this are happening all across America. Family farms that survived the Great Depression, world wars, and countless challenges are finally giving up. The knowledge, skills, and traditions built over generations are disappearing. The environmental impact. The farming crisis isn't just about economics, it's creating environmental problems too. When farms are abandoned, the land often isn't cared for properly. Soil erosion increases, water systems can be damaged, and wildlife habitats are disrupted. In contrast, when farms are working and profitable, farmers invest in conservation. They plant cover crops, build terraces to prevent erosion, and create wildlife corridors. Good farming is good for the environment, but only if farmers can afford to do it right. Canada understood this connection. They offer special programs that pay farmers to use environmentally friendly practices. This makes Canadian farms more attractive to international buyers who care about sustainability. The health connection. The farming crisis is also affecting public health. When local farms disappear, communities lose access to fresh, healthy food. Rural areas that once had abundant fresh produce now become food deserts where people can only buy processed foods from convenience stores. Dr. Sarah Williams, who works at a rural health clinic in Iowa, has seen the change firsthand. "We're seeing more diabetes, heart disease, and obesity in our patients," she explains. "When fresh vegetables cost more than fast food, people make difficult choices." The problem gets worse when you consider that many rural areas already struggle with healthcare access. When farming communities collapse, it becomes even harder to maintain hospitals and clinics in these areas. The ripple effect across America. Food processing plants close. The crisis doesn't stop at the farm gate. When American farms produce less, food processing plants have less work to do. The Smithfield processing plant in Waterloo, Iowa, used to process corn and soybeans 24 hours a day. Now it only runs 3 days a week, and 200 workers have been laid off. These aren't just statistics, they're families trying to make ends meet. Maria Santos worked at the plant for 15 years and suddenly found herself without a job. "I thought food processing was recession-proof," she said. "I never imagined that American farms would run out of crops to process. Transportation and logistics suffer." The farming crisis has also hurt trucking companies, railways, and shipping businesses. Grain elevators that used to ship full train cars of corn and wheat now sit mostly empty. Trucking companies that specialized in hauling agricultural products have had to lay off drivers or close entirely. This creates a vicious cycle. As transportation infrastructure declines, it becomes even harder and more expensive for remaining farmers to get their products to market, making their situation worse. The innovation drain. American agriculture used to be the most innovative in the world. American companies invented many of the farming techniques, equipment, and technologies that changed global agriculture. But as farms struggle, there's less money for research and development. Meanwhile, Canada is investing heavily in agricultural innovation. They're developing new crop varieties, improving farming techniques, and creating better food safety systems. As America falls behind in innovation, it becomes even harder to compete. International consequences. America's global reputation. For decades, America was seen as the most reliable food supplier in the world. Made in USA on food products meant quality, safety, and dependability. But as American farms fail to meet their commitments, this reputation is being damaged. When Egypt's wheat shipment from Kansas was delayed by 3 weeks, It wasn't just a business problem, it was a diplomatic issue. Countries that depend on food imports need reliable suppliers, and America is no longer seen as reliable. National security implications. Food security is national security. Countries that can't feed themselves are vulnerable to pressure from those who can. As America becomes more dependent on food imports, it loses some of its independence and strength in international relations. Military experts are starting to worry about this. General Robert Smith, retired, recently said, "A country that can't feed itself can't defend itself. We're giving up one of our greatest strategic advantages." The geopolitical shift. Canada's agricultural success isn't just about farming, it's changing the balance of power in North America. As Canada becomes a major food exporter, it gains influence and economic power. Countries that used to depend on American food are now building relationships with Canada instead. This shift affects trade negotiations, diplomatic relationships, and America's overall influence in the world. The technology gap. Modern farming requires modern tools. Today's farming is much more complex than it was 50 years ago. Farmers need GPS-guided tractors, soil sensors, weather monitoring systems, and computer programs to manage their crops. These technologies can make farming more efficient and profitable, but they require significant investment. Canadian farmers have embraced these technologies with government support. They can precisely track everything from soil moisture to plant health, allowing them to optimize their farming practices and reduce waste. American farmers often can't afford these advanced tools. Without them, they're at a disadvantage in both productivity and quality control. The data revolution. Modern agriculture generates enormous amounts of data. Information about soil conditions, weather patterns, crop health, and market prices can help farmers make better decisions, but managing this data requires sophisticated systems and skilled personnel. Canada has invested in agricultural data systems that help farmers make informed decisions. They can predict the best time to plant, the right amount of fertilizer to use, and the optimal time to harvest. American farmers often struggle with data management because they lack the resources and support systems that Canadian farmers have. The human stories behind the statistics. The stress on farming families. The farming crisis is taking a terrible toll on farming families. Suicide rates among farmers are higher than in any other profession. The stress of losing farms that have been in families for generations, combined with financial pressure and uncertainty about the future, is overwhelming. Support groups for struggling farmers are forming across the Midwest. These groups provide emotional support and practical advice, but they also reveal the depth of the crisis. Farmers who once were proud and independent are now gathering to share their pain and seek help. The impact on children. Farm children are growing up in a world very different from their parents. They're watching their families struggle and seeing their heritage disappear. Many are choosing not to continue farming, not because they don't love the land, but because they can't see a future in it. Sarah Mitchell, a high school senior in rural Iowa, says, "I love our farm, but I can't stay and watch it fail. My parents are always worried about money, and I don't want that life." The aging of rural America. As young people leave rural areas, farming communities are aging rapidly. The average age of farmers continues to rise, and there aren't enough young people to replace them. This creates a knowledge gap as experienced farmers retire without passing on their skills. The loss of young people also means fewer children in rural schools, fewer customers for local businesses, and fewer volunteers for community organizations. Entire communities are slowly dying. Looking to the future. The next generation's choices. Today's farm children will make decisions that determine the future of American agriculture. Will they stay and fight to save their family farms, or will they leave for more promising opportunities in the cities? The answer depends partly on what support they receive. If young farmers can get help with education, technology, and financing, some might choose to stay. But if the current trends continue, rural America will continue to empty out. The role of technology. Technology could help save American agriculture, but only if farmers can afford it and learn to use it effectively. Precision agriculture, automated equipment, and data analytics could make American farms more competitive, but these innovations require significant investment. The importance of policy. Government policies will play a crucial role in determining whether American agriculture survives and thrives. Policies on immigration, trade, environmental regulation, and rural development will all affect the future of farming. The question is whether policymakers understand the urgency of the situation and are willing to take action before it's too late. What can be done? Immediate actions needed. To save American agriculture, several things need to happen quickly. 1. Workforce solutions. Create legal pathways for agricultural workers to enter the country and work on farms safely.